so we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but hey, we're in. Better late than never. It is time to talk some NBA here tonight. Only one game on the card, but we are going to break this thing down 9 ways to sunshine here. See if we can't figure out a couple of ways for us to bet it and make a few bucks. And you see him on the screen, double R, 1L, Steve Merril in the house. Ready to do this thing here tonight. What a difference a week makes, though, Merril, does it not? I mean, seems like forever ago, but really just 1 week ago, the amount of shit we took in the chat room about Minnesota sweeping Denver and the champs are chumps and, oh, my word. But crickets, quite honestly, over the last couple of days about all of these Denver. Who knew Denver was that hated, Merril? I had no idea they were that hated. But yet here they are, 1 game away from advancing to the Western Conference Finals here. What surprises you most about how this has played out so far?
Yeah, who knew Denver was this good, right? Who knew Jokic was this good?
No,
a week ago, nobody remembered. It's just amazing. Minnesota's the higher seed. Oklahoma City's the higher seed. They're both on their way out, most likely. It's going to be Dallas, Denver, unless something changes. They're both about 80% chances to advance now. And if you look at the standings, Denver's now 2 games ahead in wins, 1 less loss than Minnesota. So, yeah, they're the lower seed, but they have a better 1-loss record already. And both teams have played 91, 92 games. But like you said, Joe, less than a week ago, 6 days ago to be exact, Minnesota was a minus 500-plus favorite to win this series after the 2-0 lead in Denver. It's funny. We talk about that NBA situation where a star player is out and how you just play on that team. And I think everyone forgets Gobert missed game 2, and that was the one blowout win for Minnesota. So if we kind of put an asterisk next to that game for that reason, Denver, yes, they were down 18-4 in game 1, just a slow start, but they came back to take the lead at the half, 44-40 in game 1. Minnesota never led by more than that 14-point margin after the 18-4 start. Denver actually had a 7-point lead after overcoming that deficit. Once again, game 2, no Gobert, and I think Denver just didn't show up for that reason. But it's been pure Denver dominance in the last 3 games since. I cashed a best bet on Denver last Friday in game 3. I thought it was an excellent bounce back. I thought we were buying low on the defending world champs. Unfortunately, Minnesota has sucked me in on games 4 and 5. I'm on Minnesota tonight. I'm not making it a client best bet, which means it'll probably 100% win. So that's good news for all the viewers here on the show. You're getting a lock, a free winner here with the Minnesota T-Wolves -2 because I did not pull the trigger with them as an official play tonight.
Merril, you heard it. He used the L word tonight.
I know. I hardly ever use it. I told a guy in the comments yesterday, was bitching about some locks. I go, I've never used the word lock in my 30-year career. Now I just did it. And as I was doing it, I remembered I said I'd never done it. So
yes,
never know.
Yes. Well, we got a lot of ways to look at this game here. Quick shout out to the chat rooms here today on this Thursday. Shout out to Instagram, Greg Beasley hanging out with us, Justin Lionheart. We appreciate you guys. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. And, of course, royalty in the house here. Titan CT, A Life in Vegas. Eric D is pretty much stalking us on every platform because I could have sworn I just saw him on Instagram. Now he's over to Facebook. He's done day drinking. A Life in Vegas. Have Cash. John Obi topping over points. Finley in the house here, Merril, with us today. And it's good to see Ryan Huffman joining us again. As he is pointing out the fact that he was all over Luka yesterday. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan, who's new to us here at WagerTalk TV, he's from Dallas. If I remember, that's what he posted yesterday. And he said, be very careful with this team because they look like they're in a zone. And boy, they were in a zone last night, Merril. And once again, SGA can't do it alone, and they went MIA. The supporting cast, once again, can't make any shots, Merril, and yet SGA and OKC are going to find themselves in a pretty precarious spot having to go back to Dallas now.
You know, Draymond Green was in the studio last night on the TNT show afterwards.
Great.
And
yes,
it's a great show. Other than this NBA show, NBA talk here on WagerTalk TV. That's the second best NBA show is the TNT. And it's funny, Joe, I was thinking about it. Why is it NBA shows have the lighthearted, like fun atmosphere? Like you see it a little bit on the MLB shows. You never see it on an NFL show. My theory is that it's just such a violent sport. You got to take it serious. You don't see it on the college basketball shows because I don't think anybody knows the players. But the NBA show is very lighthearted, and it's the same way here on WagerTalk TV. Like this is the show where we kind of let loose as well. So it's interesting. Viewers, live chat, give me your theories on that. I think one of the reasons is because the players are known, and I think the regular season is somewhat of a goofball fest with all the load management and everything. I think that's another reason. We're always joking here about who's playing, who's not. But Draymond had an excellent point yesterday about the OKC series, and this is coming from a guy that's won multiple championships. He knows the playoffs well. He said, it looks like Dallas has figured out Oklahoma City, and he thinks that's bad news for him. And the reason I bring that up is because it almost seems like Denver has figured out Minnesota as well. I get the same feeling in this series because they've shot 54% or better in 3 straight games now against, quote-unquote, the best defensive team in the NBA this year, efficiency-wise, and the defensive player of the year in Gobert. And Jokic has 40 points, the other night. So it does seem like Dallas and Denver are going to move on. Whether they do it in 6 or not, we'll find out. By the way, the top prop we gave out of the show yesterday for Dallas, Jones Jr., boy, talk about an easy win. 19 points, 7 for 9 shooting, got up and over his point total of like 9.5 rather early in that game. And it's another reason I love digging below the star players and picking some of those under the radar guys.
Yeah, you killed it with that last night as well, pointing that out, Merril. And it was obvious again yesterday, pretty early in that game, that points were not going to come easy, certainly for OKC. And young team, we talked about it. Now all of a sudden find themselves back against the wall, having to go on the road. And I don't know, what is it with some teams like the Dallas Mavericks, Merril, who lose at home and then they go on the road and they got no problem. Dallas has done this, it feels like, forever. They've done it all playoffs long here. I think even dating back with Luka, going back the last couple of playoff series, they throw up all over themselves at home, give a game away, and they're almost automatic in the next game. I mean, truly zigzag worthy there, the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, how about the Boston Celtics? Their win last night moves them to 15-14 at home the last 3 years. They finally got above 500 with that win last night, 15-14, as opposed to 18-7 on the road the last 3 years, the Celtics. So we're seeing it with several of these teams. New Orleans, of course, without Zion, had a better road record, though, this year than at home. So I think the Pelicans also fell into that group. And had they been healthy, they might have made more noise. And let's not forget that Oklahoma City got a very beneficial first-round matchup by playing those shorthanded Pelicans in that 4-0 sweep. They also caught Dallas in a great spot in Game 1. I had a best bet on OKC last Tuesday in Game 1 for that reason. They lost Games 2 and 3, and they probably should have lost Game 4. They were down by 14 the other night, and we talked about it yesterday, extreme free throw shooting disparity, and otherwise Dallas wins that game, and they win last night. So Dallas really has won 4 games in a row, except for the Game 1 situation, which was just a bad spot. So very hard to see the Thunder bouncing back and winning both of these next 2 games.
All right, so let's see. We've got a couple of questions coming in here before we dive into some of these numbers. First thing, Merril, I believe, and I just want to think, I think it's Mark Davis tonight. James Williams, Tyler Ford, Mark Davis, who I do believe, Chris, who's joining us in our shorts feed, I do believe they were, or he was the crew, Mark Davis was, in the first couple of games in Denver in which the Minnesota Timberwolves did win. So that's an interesting angle there. I do believe, Chris, that is exactly the crew that was there for games 1 and 2 in Denver. That, of course, Denver didn't fare very well there. Also, some questions about the public money here. Merril, what are you seeing so far with the numbers here today coming in? Is it the public loving Minnesota? Are they loving Denver? Is it split in the middle? What are you seeing so far today?
Yeah, I think the public is on the dog here. Excellent question, and it's something I didn't bring up in the video last night because I was doing it overnight, so I didn't have all the consensus numbers yet. But yes, I would call Denver a public dog tonight. And once again, the public is so fickle. We talk about this and so short-sighted, recency bias, whatever you want to call it. We talk about this in the NFL video all the time. They're on one team. They cash, they're back with them. But when they lose, they almost fade them the next week. And here again, 6 nights ago, less than a week ago, nobody wanted anything to do with the Denver Nuggets when they were down 0-2. Minnesota was anywhere from a 3 to 4 point favorite in that game. And then when they lost and were in a better bounce back spot, I thought on Sunday, obviously didn't work out that way. They were -3. Now they're -2. So we are getting some value. And one of the reasons fading the public is a handicapping premise I use is because it does normally lead to line value, especially when they're on the dogs. And this is a basket less than it was last week in the other 2 games. And I think you could definitely make an argument it's a better spot for Minnesota. They have to win here. It's a focused spot. Whereas Denver, sometimes they do take their foot off the gas. It's kind of like the Celtics. We've also seen Denver let teams get out to fast starts. But with that said, they're the defending world champs. They know they can close this series out tonight. So tough matchup here, but the line is cheaper by a basket, and it does look like Denver's a public underdog.
All right, so a big question for the chat room joining us here. Over under 455 that S. Warrior pops in saying, what's good, everyone? Over or under, chat room, 455 Eastern time here today. S. Warrior pops in. Let me ask you this here, Merril, because I think it's important, and some guys in the chat rooms have been asking, what the hell happened to Minnesota here? And I think it wasn't so much what happened to Minnesota, but what Denver pretty much philosophically decided and Malone decided that anybody else but Ant is going to beat them. They were not going to let him continue to get 40-plus points, any shot that they want. They are, and I think he even said it after the game, after game 5, and said, I can't remember having to deal with that many double and triple teams in my life. And as much as we all wanted to compare him to Michael Jordan, he's certainly not finding the open guy like Michael Jordan would have. So he's only 23 years old. He's got a million years to go. The guy's going to be one of the best in the NBA. But the reality is the Denver's daring Gobert. They're daring anybody else to make a shot, and they haven't been doing it, and that's really been the problem here so far.
Yes, they're taking Edwards out of his game. There's no question about it. But what jumps out to me, though, still is the defensive percentage shooting, like I mentioned at the top. Minnesota was the most efficient defense in the league this year. They were the best defensive team statistically in the NBA, and they also had the defensive player of the year down low. So you think, well, that should be a good matchup against Jokic, and he's been getting schooled, by the way, Gobert, that is. The one game they win by 26 is when he doesn't play. So it just once again shows, by the way, they do a survey in the NBA, and for a couple years, he's been voted most overrated player in the league by other players. And I think that's playing out once again while we see that. But this is a Minnesota team that's been the best defensive team all year that allowed 54, 57, and 55% shooting the last 3 games. So they have taken Edwards out of the equation offensively, but it's the Minnesota defense that's been losing these games. And by the way, Joe, first 2 games, Minnesota won and covered, stayed under. The last 3 games, Denver's won and covered, have all gone over. So you're a perfect 5-0 with correlated parlays. Once again, Minnesota under, Denver over. I lean Minnesota. I lean under in this game. And I would not argue against maybe a correlated 2-teamer there. In my video earlier overnight, I recommended Nuggets team total under. Obviously, if I lean Minnesota and under, team total under would make sense. With that said, though, asking them to score less than 100 points is kind of a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, it's a very tough pill to swallow. And yes, it should be noted, Chris brings it up, and it's a good point. I did get, at least I think, Merril, here on the 4:30 is coming out. Mike Conley was at the shoot-around. He is going to go here tonight. I believe they have cleared him. He did not play in that last game, so he will be in this game. I believe it's another one of these calf strains is what they're saying, and we're getting an awful lot of these, and you could tell he was absolutely missed, and his ability to be able to play off the ball, his ability to be able to create shots, it wasn't there for Minnesota in the last game. But like anything else, the question is, what are we going to get? 60% Mike Conley, 70%? Right. Is that better than nothing? What are we going to get from him?
Yeah, I like the under in this game, and I probably would have rather have had Conley out just for that reason, because you're without your quarterback, without your point guard. You just don't know how healthy he is. I did run the numbers, though, when he's been on off the court. He's played about 56% of the minutes this year for the T-Wolves, so it's not like he's that important. He's not in the lineup 80, 90% of the time. And per 48-minute basis, they're actually a point better offensively without him, and they're 2 points better defensively without him. So they're actually a net +3 without him this year on the court, 45% of the time. So I don't know what to make of that. I think he's probably a net neutral, but then again, if he's not healthy, it could end up hurting them if he's back in the lineup. Another reason I lean Minnesota, but I didn't pull the trigger with them. I do like the under, and if he's not fully healthy, that probably helps the under tonight.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely helps in a lot of different ways, and the correlation is there. So let's look at some of these numbers. Nuggets team total 101.5. Timberwolves team total 102.5. Juice to the over here, Merrill. And that total is still hanging around what, 205, 205.5 still? Is it, have we had any movement? Because let's face it, we've had overs now, how many in a row? And the total has not moved. I mean, the bookmakers aren't budging on the total. It's 205, 205. Last game was 205, 205.5 too, and we've gone over. So do you find it strange that the books are not adjusting the total anymore?
I'll tell you what's strange is the movement of this total. I looked when we were doing the show yesterday. I was taking an advanced look at this, and it was around 204.5, and I saw a sharp book at 204. I liked the under. I'm like, well, that makes sense. It's trending under. I did the video last night. It was down to 203. I'm like, darn, I've missed the number. I even saw a 202.5 last night at FanDuel briefly, which is a huge book. And then you look today, fast forward today, it's back up to 205. Now, part of the reason is because it became known today that Conley was going to probably play. I think that is why it bumped up maybe a basket or so. And as you said, now that he was at the shoot-around, we're seeing 2.5 start to show on Minnesota. So the T-Wolves have gone from 2 to 2.5 after he's made the shoot-around. The total's holding pretty solid, though, at 205 right now.
Yeah, I can. It's kind of strange because it was 204.5, 205, I think, when it closed last game. And it feels like, okay, what gives? We didn't get it. People are continuing to bet it over, but are people betting it over because of recency bias, Merrill, in your opinion? Are we getting a whole lot of over bets here because nobody thinks Minnesota's capable of either A, scoring over 103 points, or they continue to think that Denver is going to shoot at a unbelievably ridiculous clip?
Well, I think this is a low total. You know, if this was a month ago in the regular season, this would have been like the lowest total we'd seen all year. And now it seems normal because it's the playoffs. One thing I do want to point out is that Game 6 and Game 7 are true elimination games. No matter how you cut it, somebody's got a 3-2 or a 3-3 series tie. And these games have gone under more than over the decades. So Game 6, especially quality teams, is an underplay on the blind. But once again, the odds makers are aware of that. They factored that into these numbers. And I think one of the reasons the public is coming in on the over here is that 25 of Denver's last 26 games have had at least a total of 200 points or more. So there's not a lot of wiggle room even at 205 to stay under because Denver's gotten their games have had 200 or more in 25 of the last 26 times out. You look at this series so far, we've had 205 or more in 4 of the 5 games in this series alone, Joe. So, you know, I get why people feel like the number is low. It probably is a little too low. I like the under. I actually just posted it this afternoon as my free play of the night on my page with analysis for everybody. I was close to using it. But once again, I just felt like the line value wasn't quite there with the Conley uncertainty also. I didn't want to force it. I like the under 205, but yeah, we're treading lightly because there's not a lot of line value historically speaking.
Yeah, I mean, they're not budging off of that 205 mark here. And Anthony Edwards, just to highlight, guys, how important he is and the philosophy of what Denver has done here. 18 points, 5 of 15. I mean, just completely out of the game and nobody else able to make a shot. Now, give credit, Merrill. I think we don't want to undersell what Denver has done defensively, but they are clearly selling out to make sure that Edwards does not get in rhythm. He is not beating them by dropping 40 or 40 more here. So I'm wondering, is there anything Minnesota can do? Can Finch come up with anything to counteract that? I don't know without somebody else making a shot, because if I'm Denver, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, no?
Correct, and that's why the modified zigzag that we always talk about works in the playoffs, because the team that's losing needs to make a change, whereas the team that was winning, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So that's why we see these ebb and flows. We see Indiana up by over 43 points in Game 4, then they're down by 30 in Game 5. That's why we see this happen, and I think we could use the same logic even more so with player props, and that's what I've been talking a lot about in my daily NBA preview videos. That's why I like Jones over last night for Dallas. We talked about it here on the show. He's a guy that was, I think, 1 for 10 a couple games ago. He was getting the shot attempts, getting the minutes. If he hits anywhere near his norm, he's going to score. And then when a guy like P.J. Washington, the third guy, not Irving or Doncic, is starting to score over 20, then they got to start covering 3 guys. That's going to leave him even more open. So I'd be careful with Edwards because he's a superstar. I'm not looking to fade superstars. You know my rule there. But then again, I'm not looking to play him over because, like you said, Joe, they're really trying to shut him down, and I think it's a smart strategy. That should open things up for other guys. And one guy that has played better is Karl Anthony Towns. He's the other, superstar technically on this team, offensive star. He had a nice game in Game 4 in that loss. He had 23 points, 10 of 19 shooting. Gobert, Mr. Defensive Player of the Year, is getting schooled down there, was 7 for 7 from the field, 18 points. So all of a sudden, Rudy Gobert is an offensive star, and that's another reason they've lost 3 straight.
So the chat room in rare form here today. Big question on the table right now, Merril, is what kind of Chardonnay goes well with Ambien? So they have completely lost it on a Thursday. John
Sounds like an Instagram question.
Over top in points is having a hard time figuring out what Chardonnay should go with Ambien there. Eric D is on the same page. Titan CT here trying to put it all together. You mentioned Cat, and I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan in the chat, Cat over 19.5 points and 1.5 threes in this game here. And I mean, there's a few guys, Merril, if you're going to look at Minnesota to extend this series and win this game at home here tonight, he's got to be one of them. He's got to be a guy that has to be able to get off. They have to come up with something for him. And I guess by that same point, we're looking to back Edwards. He's got to figure out a way, like the greats have before. Even no matter what they throw at him, he's still got to be able to get his shot. So I would absolutely look at those 2 guys up and over if you're backing Minnesota. If you're thinking Denver, then ain't no way I'm backing Cat in this game.
Yeah, I'm back in Minnesota. The problem is I'm also back in the under, so I guess the player props over probably aren't where I should be looking, although that's always my default. I find it a lot easier to play guys over that I think are going to have good games. I just play a lot more over props with the players in general. I will say this, the correlation here is pretty eerie. Edwards in Game 3 had only 19 points, 8 for 15 shooting. He bounces back then with 44 points on 25 shots in Game 4. We'll look at the last game. 5 for 15, 18 points. So 15 shots in 3 and 5, 18 and 19 points. And in between, he had 44. So if that zigzag continues, he should have a breakout game tonight.
Yep. MPJ, John Peterson saying, where has he been? Michael Porter Jr., is he going to be able to turn it around? But how much do you really have to do with what the Joker has done is absolutely ridiculous. 40 points, 15 of 22 shooting, 13 assists, and I believe this is the first time that we have seen a guy that have back-to-back double-doubles. He hadn't had 1 turnover in a game, I don't think. I don't think the Joker turned the ball over once, and they have no answer for him. So how can a team with Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, Naz Reid, one of the best defensive teams, elite defensive teams all year, they have absolutely no answer for the Joker. Can they win with him still dropping 40 and doing his thing here tonight?
Yes, he had 40 points, 13 assists, no turnovers in Game 5 is what you're referencing there. And he's the first big man ever to do that. And he's actually only the second player in playoff history to have a 40-13 and no turnovers. They started taking turnover stats in the late 70s. Chris Paul was the other one to do it. So we're talking about a point guard, Chris Paul, and we're talking about Jokic. That's how crazy this is. He basically plays like a point guard, 13 assists, no turnovers. They're not going to stop him. And that is the concern because Minnesota's calling card was defense. Gobert is supposed to be the best, and he can't even come close to stopping him. So Jokic over would be the only way to play it. he's pretty much priced to perfection, though. So I'd rather dig into the card, find some other guys. Once again, I'm looking for unders because I like the Denver team total under.
Yep.
But one guy I do think could have a breakout game is Michael Porter Jr. that you mentioned. He had 6 points in game 5, but he was 2 for 10 for shooting, 2 for 7 from 3-point range. And he was only 4 points the game before that, 2 for 4, 10 shot attempts, 21 points though in game 3. So I do think Porter could have some upside here tonight. Jokic always has upside. So if you're looking for some guys to fade, Caldwell Pope is probably a good candidate. He had 16 points in game 5, but he was 6 for 8 shooting. He was 4 for 5 from 3-point range. You can't shoot any better than that. He still only got to 16 points. So I think Caldwell Pope under would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also looking at, we're seeing a couple of the comments in, one in which I absolutely agree with here. I'm on the first half under at 105.5. When you look at the numbers and dive into what has happened here, especially in the last game where Denver shot 54% with hands in their face from 3-point range, Merrill. I mean, not wide open three, 7 of 13 with guarded threes. They were making it from everywhere, but we also had the fewest possessions of any game, and we had the slowest pace of any of the games so far here. We also are seeing over the last 3 games in this series, Minnesota is averaging, Merrill, you ready for this? 44 points in the first half. 44. How are we getting to 106 or more points in this first half? I don't see everybody lighting it up from 3 here. So I do think the first half under, Merrill, at 105.5 is not a bad look. If everything stays the status quo, I don't know what else we could possibly expect from Minnesota and Denver, except a lot of defense. And at some point, this ridiculous shooting has to regress for Denver, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's an excellent play. You know, I mentioned the game under 205 is my free play tonight on the site, but I do like the under first half even more. Not everybody plays first halves. I don't dig into them as much, but so many excellent points you raise. And if you just look at the numbers, it makes no sense on several levels why the first half should be higher scoring. If you look at a college basketball game, the second half is always like 10% higher. You know, it'd be 67, 76 first, second half. It's like that in every NCAA tournament game, regular season game. The NBA, it can go either way. It can be even. It can be more in the first half, more in the second half. I see no logic why the first half is going to be higher scoring tonight. First of all, 4 of the 5 games in this series have totaled 205 or more. I mentioned that earlier. That's my concern with the under 205. But let's look at the 5 games so far first half. 84, 96, 97, 113, 94. So 4 of the 5 has stayed well under 105, even though 4 of the 5 have gone over 205. So it makes no sense. And then to take it a step further, it's a home elimination game for a good defensive team that's off 3 bad defensive outings. You got to figure defense is going to be their focus out of the gate. And Denver has shown the ability to come in complacent sometimes, and then rally in the second half. Yeah, I really like under 105 first half. It makes no sense. In fact, when I first saw it, I thought it was backwards. I thought it should be 100 first half, 105 second half. So I'd like an explanation by the odds makers what they're looking at when they set that price.
I no idea here. So I believe, Kevin, there it is. First half under for me. I believe FB Coach, you're on that as well. Wolves first half I'm seeing from Brand in there too, which I think all correlates here, but you better get more points. You better be averaging more than 44 points in the first half if you're going to beat Denver. And Eric D has an interesting question here as well. Talking about how Teddy always talks about in big games, the better team usually wins, right? Isn't the better team Denver, Merrill, here? Or are we missing something?
Yeah, but 6 days ago, everybody thought the better team was Minnesota. And if you look at the regular season metrics, not only were they the higher seed, which I don't put a lot of stock in that, but defensive efficiency, net rating, they actually were ahead of Denver in the regular season over 82 games. So my concern coming into the playoffs for both OKC and Minnesota was the experience factor. And I will say, Joe, it looks like that's played out because Oklahoma City hasn't made the adjustments. I think there's a lot of lack of playoff experience, even at the coaching level there. As you said, SGA has become kind of a one-man show. That's not what you need in the playoffs. And Minnesota's a young team also. So I do think the experience factor, especially against a team like Denver, is what's going to do them in. And yeah, I do think Denver's the better team. They're going to win this series. But once again, 6 days ago, everybody thought the opposite.
Yeah, well, and we're seeing Denver money line, Denver first half, Denver first quarter. I think that makes all the sense in the world. Nas Reed points over, asks John Alonzo here. Interesting spot for Nas Reed. It has not been outside of that first game in Denver, I think, where he was a big part of the win. His net rating on the court in this series has been abysmal. They are, it was minus 25 last I checked a game ago. They are not winning the minutes with him on the floor. In fact, for that matter, they didn't win the minutes with Edwards on the floor in the last game either. When Edwards has got minus 12 or minus 13 as a net next to his name at the end of the game, if you can't win the Edwards minutes, you ain't winning the Nas Reed minutes. How much can we trust Nas Reed pretty much in this spot? And are we looking at everyone playing 45 minutes here? The big guys all playing 45 plus minutes in this one, Merrill?
Yeah, I mean, Nas Reed's had 7 or more in all 5 games. He's had 14, 16, and 11 in 3 of them, 7 in each of the others. He's priced around 9. He was 0 for 3 from three-point range in the last game. So if he'd hit 1 3, he would have gotten over that total with 10. I like him over 9. It's not something really strong, but if I was going to play that, I would take the over 8.5, over 9 for Nas Reed points.
Rob Lynch has Minnesota to win 4 games to 3 plus 750. That's a good ticket. Hold on to that. And that's an interesting question too, Merrill. It was asked in the chat. Minnesota wins tonight, Game 7 in Denver. Is this a zigzag from here on out?
Yeah, I'm doing the math real quick. That seems extremely high to me, but I guess it's right. They're minus 135 tonight. I would project them to be about a 5.5 point dog probably in Game 7, which is exactly what the Knicks are tomorrow night. That money line's plus 185. So yeah, I mean that seems like a decent price. Actually, I'd have to run the numbers there, but I would think it's probably paying less than 7 to 1. Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad to me. I don't think it's going to happen though. It's got a chance.
It's not that I'd rather have that ticket than not. That is for sure here right now, and he's got him. How about do we think a difference is going to be made with Minnesota if Conley is playing? Conley is playing, Mark. He is going to give it a go. How effective he's going to be, I don't know, but I do know this, Merrill. Minnesota's better with him than without him. The question is, how effective can he be? I'm real leery about those strained calves. Are never a good thing, especially with a guy like Conley who has a history of injuries where, does he play the whole game? You got to worry about that.
Yeah, by the way, I'm looking at FanDuel right now. Nuggets, 4 games to 3 plus 145. T-Wolves, 4 games to 3 plus 360. So
he
7
got
to
it
1.
Pre-series, by the way, pre-flop.
Okay, I was just going to say, I didn't think there's any
pre-flop.
realm where that was. Got you.
No,
okay,
didn't bet it now.
Sense.
Yes, pre-flop.
Yeah, no, he's got a nice price then. Yeah, he can definitely hedge out. I would hedge out of that, by the way, because I don't think it's likely to happen. But you're in a good situation. You could actually take the Nuggets plus 2.5 on the point spread tonight and try to catch a middle. Because then if Minnesota wins by 1 or 2, your ticket is still alive and you've covered back your initial investment. So that's what I would do. I would hedge out the initial cost of the ticket on Denver plus 2.5. I think that'd be what I would do personally. Yeah, I mean, my concern with Conley is that I just don't know how healthy he is. I'm assuming he's not 100% healthy, and that makes me very nervous. Once again, I lean Minnesota, I lean under, but I think Conley not 100% hurts the T-Wolves, could help the under. The more I've looked at it, though, I do like that first half under 105. That price makes no sense to me.
I am with you here. Are his calves more beat up than Luka's? Listen, Luka's got ass issues. His ass hurts. His knee hurts. I haven't heard the calf yet with Luka, but that man walking around like he 85 years old, like he might as well be pushing the oxygen tank. Like, good God almighty. And yet here he's out here dropping double-doubles all game long. It's absolutely amazing. 13.5, by the way, for Conley. I would look under those points, though, here. I would expect Anthony Edwards, in all likelihood, to get back on track here. And if he is less than 100%, I think maybe more. He's averaging, Merrill, I don't know if you have this in front of you. I think he's averaging about 8 assists a game in the series here, Conley. So maybe that's not a bad way to look as opposed to points as a distributor in this one for him.
Yeah, the problem with the guys when they're injured for me is it's either under or pass. And the reason I say that, because as you know, Joe, if he
Yes.
takes one step on the court and plays 1 minute, it's a live ticket. So there's a lot of intrinsic risk to the over for a guy that's not
Yes.
100%. But the assist would be my preferred over. If you got to play a Conley over, I would look assist because that's why they're going to have him out there as the point guard.
By the way, Gobert, is he going to keep? Are they going to keep him on guarding Jokic? Because it hasn't worked out all that well. 29 and a half points for the Joker here tonight, just under 30. Merrill, again, you say it all the time. I'm not looking to get in front and fade superstars. I don't care how good or how bad they have looked. I don't care how high the number gets. 29 and a half here, back-to-back 40 plus. And I just don't know what Minnesota can do to slow him down. They're better off just saying, all right, do your thing, Joker. We just can't let guys like Jamal Murray and Jackson and anybody else beat them here tonight. Be easier said than done, by the way.
Yeah, by the way, the two guys I didn't mention for under player props would be Gordon and Murray. I think one of them definitely stays under. Murray's a little banged up, and I think you're right. They can't stop Jokic. But how ridiculous is this right now? We're asking if they should tell the defensive player of the year to stop trying to guard somebody. I mean, what a joke Gobert is. It really is. And that's why I think Minnesota's in some serious trouble.
Yeah, no, it's they might be able to get one here tonight, but if the champs are the champs, well, the champs are there for a reason. Christian Braun, too, I'm being told here, Merrill, should be looked at here. He was always one of those lesser guys here, guys off the bench that you love to focus on in the playoffs in this series. Have you looked at him at all in this series? I don't remember you talking about him.
No, he's not a guy I've looked at. I hadn't really looked at Naz Reid either, but after, the one viewer question earlier, I would leave Naz Reid over 9. But yeah, really no opinion there. The problem, it comes down to minutes for these guys. What I look for when I'm playing player props and why I lean towards the over, because I like to look for guys that are getting minutes and getting shot attempts. Yep. And that's another reason I really like Jones last night, because 2 games ago, he was 1 for 10. If they hit anywhere near their shot attempts, they're going to get up and over. And Karl Anthony Towns is a guy that's had a lot more shot attempts the last couple games. And that's not a fluke. It's because, like you said, they're trying to shut down Edwards. Yep. So I think Towns over makes a lot of sense. And, some of the lesser guys for both Denver and Minnesota, I just don't think are going to see the court as much, especially in an elimination game like tonight.
I am seeing it's time for the alternate market, Merrill. We're at the point of the show here. And by the way, it's 4:56. Where's that Warrior? Those that you had over 4:55 before he pops in here and starts screaming, "What up, people? Take Miami." Ayo's in the house, though. Pistons in 5. Ayo, we love you. Always a pleasure to see you. Alternate market time, Merrill. And we're looking at alternate total team points for Denver. I'm seeing 107 is an option, 112. How many points have they dropped in these last couple of games in these wins here? They're at 101 tonight. If you wanted to take them at over 106, over 112, which is what they've been getting, right? I'm seeing some huge numbers here for the Denver team total if you think this thing is going to go that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Minnesota, and I'm under for the game, under for the first half. So any Denver team total props, I'm leaning under. So I would like either full game or first half. I think that first half makes a lot of sense. Once again, I expect Minnesota to come out with defensive intensity after 3 really bad defensive games now back at home. Could see Denver come out a little sluggish since they had 3 straight wins. So I like the Denver first half under, team total for the game under. Those would be the ways I'd play it.
If you are backing Denver, then just go all in Denver, Merrill. All right. I mean, if you're going Denver tonight and you think Denver ends this, then go for it here, because the 101.5. Listen, Denver could still lose and get over the point total, right, Merrill? I mean, that's very feasible in this spot here at 101.5 here. So Denver you could still cash that ticket over on their points and Denver not win. So you still have an opportunity, even if you're back in Minnesota, to cash a ticket on Denver getting over that. But I think you and I are in agreement, short of any sort of crazy 3-point action here tonight, and Denver has been on a roll, but the regression, does it hit now? Does it hit next series for Denver? Game 7 is going to be extremely interesting if we get to it there. But the bottom line, if you like Minnesota, their team total over 103, Merrill, seems feasible. If you like Denver, their team total over 101, that seems feasible too as well.
Yeah, one thing I'll point out, though, is we're talking about all 4 of these 5 games have had 205 or more. 4 of my 5 mathematical rescores have had 204 or less. And that's because the pace has not been fast. I mean, if you look at Game 5 the other night, look at Game 5. I mean, the 55 and 49% shooting, they still only got to 209. So, the pace hasn't been there. And that's another reason why Game 6s and 7s trend under more times than not, because teams tighten up, less possessions, more defensive intensity. So I'm pretty much leaning towards under props on team totals any way you're cutting it tonight in this Game 6.
The slowest paced, and the only reason it got over, Merrill, is because of the absolutely ridiculous shooting and efficiency of Denver. And that's kind of the only reason that we have gotten up and over here. And by the way, S. Warrior in the house, jumping in here. Very nice. You're a little late, but we did cash a ticket on you, S. Warrior. We appreciate you announcing yourself. Yes, at what time? 5 o'clock. There it is. It's 5
You might have had the alt
somewhere.
line. He might have had the alt hour line there, and that's exactly why he came in at 5 Eastern. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's especially here. Mulberry Miles in the chat is throwing Denver bombs all over the place. He's got $1,000 on Ant throwing a tantrum here tonight. Boy, the shit talking going on for Denver backers in the chat room is over the top here. But Slow Jams wants to know, Merrill, we getting 2 Game 7s on Sunday?
Well, I mean, Indiana's a 5.5 point favorite tomorrow, so they should win. They have about a 65-70% chance. So then we need Minnesota or OKC, and Minnesota is a favorite. So yes, more likely than not, we will have 2 Game 7s. But now OKC Game 7 will be Monday, but Minnesota, Indiana are both favorites. So, well, the math of having both on Sunday, no. But I think we will have 2 Game 7s on either Sunday or Monday combined. How about that?
Yes, like that. I think, and the NBA would love nothing more than a couple of more Game 7s. Nothing more there. Anthony Edwards over 2.5 threes. I'm seeing he's attempted 8, 5. He's basically gone over. I think he's gone over at least 3 or more in 3 of the 4 games here, Merrill, if I'm not mistaken. So he's not a bad look. Over 2.5 3-pointers is not a bad look. And Michael Porter Jr., this is interesting, over 3.5 points in the first quarter for JG in the house, throwing that in there. Not a bad situation. I don't mind that either. I think Michael Porter Jr. has got to step up here for Denver at some point. But everyone keeps thinking Jamal Murray is yet to have that Jamal Murray game. He may not have it, Merrill, in this series here. If they even get out of here, we may have to wait for them to, get to the next series if we're going to see him. I don't know that this is a great matchup or he plays that kind of role against Minnesota here in what could be, 2 more games?
Yeah, let's keep in mind, everyone keeps waiting for Kyrie Irving to have one of those breakout scoring games, but he's getting assists, doing other things, right? So it reminds me a lot of Dallas. And, oh, by the way, Dallas is up 3 games to 2, just like Denver. So there again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Murray doesn't have to do anything different. So that's why I lean Murray and Gordon under, because I think Jokic is going to be the center of attention once again.
Yeah, love that SI35 Joker under tonight. They are going to make an effort to defend him and let somebody else try and beat them. Listen, it's worked for Denver. They've done it to Ant. They've made life a living hell for him and have dared anybody else to beat him, but nobody else has stepped up at this point. You can't let him drop another 40 burger on you, Minnesota. Sorry. And like you said, Steve, the reigning defensive player of the year. Hello? Like, where are you, dude? Like, where are you here? Somebody has got to step up here and dare somebody else on Denver to beat him. No?
Well, let's give Andy Lang, the prop master, some credit. He loves to do that fade the newborn baby angle in golf, UFC, tennis, and we joke how it's the individual sports. Well, I don't think that's what's going on here, but it is something to keep in mind. He missed game 2. His girlfriend was having their first child. They won by 26 without him, and they've gone 0-3 since he's returned, and all 3 have gone over. So maybe there is something to that angle.
Yeah, it's a little sleeper one eye open kind of situation, except for
And he's
Scotty
on French
Scheffler.
time.
Yeah, and French time. That's right. Except for Scotty Scheffler, who had a brand new baby and then goes out and eagles the first hole today. So forget it, guy's an absolute freak. Asking if we're playing are we going? Looks like Nuggets closing it out. Are we playing the Astros here tonight? Well, here's the question: Is Christian Javier pitching? Then the answer is no. Yes, there you go. Very good. We're absolutely not playing the Astros here tonight. And what do we do? Phillies losing streak they seem to be calling for, Merrill, here. They beat the snot out of the Mets. They're probably going to beat the snot out of them again here today. And Dan, I think, needed these last couple of hours to place a bet on Philadelphia. I believe he's mortgaged everything he's owned to put it on the Phillies here tonight. So we wish Dan the very best there, Merrill, with that. Not sure how that's going to work out for him, though. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, by the way, I've got a free play in that Astros-A's game on my page right now for everybody. And also did a standalone video here on WagerTalk TV. So check out my page, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, for that free play in baseball. And I do have a strong best bet tonight on one of the night games as well, an over-under. So I know we're talking basketball, but yeah, you're right. The daily bread and butter for here on out for the next several months is baseball.
Yep. Will be baseball, guys, and we have got you covered. Conley, 13.5 points is what we're getting, little Aaron. That's was the last number that I've seen. If it's changing all. We also got under 205. Absolutely. Gilly from Green Bay. That is our consensus here. And Steve and I also love the first half under. What did you see it at, Merrill? 105 now? It was 105.5 earlier. Down to 105?
Yeah, game line is 205, 105, according to the WagerTalk live odds screen on the first half. Makes no sense to me why they think the first half is going to be 5 points higher scoring than the second half. If anything, I think it should be the other way around.
I agree. AOD, just take the Tigers in 5. No, Yanks are Twins. Stop it. We all know the Yankees already beat the Twins again for another time. That'll do it here. Merrill Bell, are you locked, loaded? You didn't post it in the NBA, you said, here tonight. But what do you got coming up here at WagerTalk.com?
I put a free play for this game up tonight on my page. I mentioned that free baseball play, but I also have a free play in this NBA game for everybody tonight on my page at WagerTalk.com. And then the best moneymaker, the client best bet, is a baseball game tonight, an easy over slugfest, which I think will be over nice and early with some runs scored. Check that out right now, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. And we do have a 7-day baseball special, 7 days for just $49 if you want to get on board tonight and get that best bet and the next 6 days and nights as well. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. And don't forget, 2 free play videos up for baseball, including the late night game between the Dodgers and Reds here on WagerTalk TV. So check out the baseball and basketball free content. Hit subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts. Thumbs up, like, and comment below. We read all the comments and we reply back.
Yeah, we absolutely do here, guys. Should be a fun one, but like you said, we got a couple of more coming up. Merrill, tomorrow on a Friday, heading into the weekend. And will Knicks fans have a coronary? Will they be on Instagram drinking quickly tomorrow? Knicks fans got a lot on the line here tomorrow, and congratulations if you do win your prize. Well, losing in 5 to the Celtics here. Yay. Sounds like a great prize there, Merrill, unfortunately. You guys are great. Bokum, Sonny, we appreciate it. George Wood in the house. Gilly from Green Bay. AOD, Eric D. Free Sauce. Hey. Free Sauce in the house. Love that. Conley assists and rebounds over 8.5. We appreciate that. Ryan Huffman. Edwards over 2.5 threes is exactly what we were looking at there. You guys are the best. We appreciate, as always, you guys hanging out with us. Make plans. Come back and join us again tomorrow. We'll do it again. Big weekend coming up across the board. We have got you covered. Until then, on behalf of Steve, we appreciate you guys. All the best here. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Good luck.